my personal mission, not only in life, but here today, is simply to empower you, to empower others, to be happy. Today we have an extraordinary opportunity because we can reach about 1/8 of the world and change the world in one simple day. If I can empower you, or at least 1,000 of you today, in order to empower another 1,000 people, to empower another 1,000 people to be happy, 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000 is 1 billion people, about 1/8 of this universe. 1/8 of the world can be empowered to be happy, and there's nothing more important in life than to be happy. And I'm going to teach, through my journey, lessons of happiness. It's really simple, of how to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. My definition of happiness is really simple. It's the enjoyment of the consistent, everyday, persistent, without quit, pursuit of your potential. And there's one thing that I know. Happy people don't have disease. They don't destroy, right? They don't have to, they're amazing. Happy people don't do bad things. Number one, you have to be happy to give it to other people. And if you're not feeling happy, then go ask for help. Ask for help. Ask somebody, can you please help me? This is what I need to be happy.
But today I came with expectation to like feel that energy today, because I just was like, if I could just get here to listen to your story today, you know, that would inspire me. And I just really want to say thank you, you know. That's why I came back, because it would just in me just to come back at least and say thank you. You know, you might not have been where I'm at right now, but you know, your story still inspired me regardless.
All of you live in the world of more than enough, with me and through me. And so if all of us can live with gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication, if all of us can consistently, every day, persistently, without quit, enjoy the pursuit of that blessing, that potential, that truth, we can manifest everything we desire. And if I can empower you to be happy, to empower others to be happy, that's what makes me happy. Hi, I'm Dave Meltzer, author, speaker, entrepreneur. What a pleasure to be here to talk about game time decision making, the crucial decisions that we make, especially in finding investment. The first step in those decision making processes, especially with financial investment, is something that everybody passes over. And it's determining and taking inventory of your timing and your risk tolerance. So many people think in making decisions about investments that it's about the market maker, or the buy and sell side of the agreement, the vetting process, or even the emotional attachment. But the most important thing in making a decision is knowing for you what the best timing is, when and how and why the timing will work according to your values, your personal values, your experiential values, your giving values, and receiving values. And this timing can be a process of asking for help, finding the people that sit in a situation to understand what timing best suits your values as well. And the second thing that they skip over is risk tolerance. So many people go into an investment without determining what their own risk tolerance is, whether they're looking for short, mid, or long-term investments, whether they're looking for high, medium, or low risk. For me, my risk tolerance has changed over the years. I used to go into investment almost on all emotion. As you know, people buy for emotion for logical reasons. I invested on emotion without even using my logic, the logic of timing, but more importantly, understanding my risk tolerance. I didn't know what type of return on investment or the timing of the return on investment that I was looking for. It is so important that we take inventory according to our personal, experiential, giving and receiving values. What is our timing and what is our risk tolerance? My entire investment strategy, my entire game time decision making has changed over the years, because what I realized was in the amount of time that it took in order to take advantage of, learn about, manage, and emotionally tie myself to investments in stocks or real estate or some other type of investment as an angel investment, I could have focused in on just making money and then take my money and put it into risk-free investments that, for example, may double every 12 years or 7 years, determinative upon whatever the market dictates at that time. I have found that the amount of time, energy, and emotion that I spent trying to take care of money that I already made that I ended up losing really would have been better suited if I would have taken inventory of my own values, personal, experiential giving and receiving, and looked to and stuck with my own timing and risk tolerance. In order to do that, we have to know our values. And when I talk about those values, I talk about taking inventory of values to see, number one, if the investment is aligned with, supplementary to, or synergistic to the values that I have, to the timing and risk tolerance that I have determined. And I look for things, for example, that are doing well right now. I use those values to make the best decisions on what's doing well now. The second market would be what's stable. So I use and I know and take inventory of my values, understanding my timing and risk tolerance of what's stable today, seeing what is synergistic, supplementary to my values today. And then finally, knowing those values for what I think is going to be doing well in the future. And once again, seeing how those values are aligned, synergistic or supplementary to what I think is going to do well in the future. And that's how I determine how to utilize and make decisions very quickly, especially concerning investment strategies and investment decisions that need to be made that emotionally drain us. It is a soul sucker to invest our money, our hard earned money, when we're not sure and haven't taken inventory of our timing and risk tolerance and haven't done a value assessment to see how those are synergistic or supplementary to what we're looking at. If we can predetermine the percentage of investment dollars or predetermine the distribution of our money without emotion, this also helps with the timing and risk tolerance as well as our decision making process. So I try to predetermine percentage wise for every dollar earned, this percentage goes to paying myself, this percentage goes to charity, this percentage goes to my expenses, and this percentage goes to what's doing well investing wise, what's stable investing wise, and a couple lottery tickets investing wise. And I stick to those percentage, all dictated and motivated and focused in on allowing me to pay attention to and give intention to the coincidences I want in my investment and decision making so that they're aligned with everything that have been predetermined, extracting my emotions from it, trying to stay out of irrational thought without utilizing the most important quality of making decisions, which is math of time, resources, and money, understanding how best to align with what I want, not why I want it, but what I want. We have to know our what. We then have to know our who. Who is it that sits in the situation that best can help us make those decisions? So we have to find someone that knows the market that we're looking to make the decision or investment in. So find someone with 30, 40 years of experience with identical or at least similar markets so that you can utilize the most valuable asset those people have, which is their dummy tax. You don't have to pay the dummy tax. Allow them to pay the dummy tax. Know your who so you can find out what a market is in reality. The second who that you need to know is the market makers. So many times it doesn't matter the knowledge of the market, it's just determined upon who's making the market itself, allowing us to make better decisions, allowing us to be more statistically successful, allowing us to understand who controls and makes the rules of the game. And so when we find the who are the market makers, we then can have greater statistical success, once again, aligning with the assessment of values, our timing and risk and timing and risk tolerance. Finally, we need to know the who about the sell side and the buy side of a deal. Who are the people that are involved and what is involved when we are in the buy side or the sell side of a deal? Where's the money made? What percentages are paid? Helping us align and assess the values. Once again, taking inventory over timing and risk tolerance to best create efficiencies and effectiveness in a statistically successful decision. You need to know the who of the market, the who of the market makers, and who's on the buy side and who's on the sell side. So once we know our what, our timing and risk tolerance, assessment of those values, and our who, knowing who creates that market, who's the market makers, and who's on the buy side and the sell side of a deal, we now are ready to work through the 5 components of making a decision. The first component is credibility. If I was 100% credible, I could sell anything to anyone. If I was 100% credible, I could ask all of you to wire me $1 million, tell you that I will tomorrow wire you back 2 million, and all of you would beg, borrow, and steal and find the million to send to me if I was 100% credible. And what people do is they damage their own decision-making process by not vetting properly, not looking for the credibility, not asking the hard questions. They're too embarrassed to ask. Most people trust everyone. I'm one of those people. In fact, I lost over 100 million one time in my life in my younger years because I trusted everyone and I did not take accountability to vet them. If you're going to take away one takeaway from this presentation today, it's trust and vet really hard. Don't be afraid of asking the hard questions. If something doesn't make sense, ask about it. Do the math. If someone's hiding something, if they tell you our revenue's up 300%, ask them what was your revenue last year? Because if it was $1, it doesn't mean much if they now have $3 of revenue. Ask the hard questions, ask them for references, ask them to prove the numbers, ask them why and how they based that credibility of their statement on something. And know that if they aren't credible on one thing, that you're just opening a can of worms, that they're overselling, back-end selling, lying, manipulating, or cheating. Part of the decision-making process is figuring out whether the source of your decision, the basis of your decision, the independent, the dependent variables of your decision are credible. And you need to be more interested than interesting. You need to ask to find out what degree of credibility, the stable data that you are evaluating to make your decision, to know the market makers, the buy and sell side, the values, the timing and risk tolerance, all of those different things. You must determine the credibility by trusting and vetting all that you are ascertaining in the data side of making that decision. The second thing we need to look at is your emotional attachment in the decision. I think it's very important to take a pragmatic approach to understand your emotional attachment. Emotional attachment can add an inertia, a momentum. It also can add to the price of making a decision when we really want something. I spent a lot of time in my life, number one, emotionally being a victim. I lived in a scarce mindset, understanding that there wasn't enough of anything. And therefore, it hurt my decision-making process because I felt a need not to be a victim. There wasn't enough of anything for anyone. I lived in this scarce world of everything happens to me. Why me? And then there's another emotionally attached person that lives in the world of just enough for them. They emotionally attach, and usually this is a dangerous decision-making status to be in, the world of just enough, where everything happens for you, because you end up making decisions on things you don't need, even to impress people you don't like. It's still a scarce world. There's just enough for you, and your decisions are made in a vacuum. It's not an abundant approach. It's not a multiple approach of more than enough. And that's where I want you to really analyze when you're making these decisions, especially for financial investment. Where's your emotional attachment? Can you live in a world of abundance? Understand detaching your emotions from the outcome. living in a world of more than enough of everything for everyone, where you know that everything in this decision making, the market makers, the buy, the sell side, the knowing your values, timing, and risk tolerance are aligned with knowing that everything does not happen to you when you make these decisions. They don't happen for you, buying things you don't need to impress people you don't like, but more importantly, they happen through you in an abundant way for others, with complete faith that there's more than enough of everything for everyone. You negotiate from abundance. You live your life from abundance. All the decisions, personally and professionally, that you make are made in this world of more than enough. That is based off of number one, gratitude, where we find the light, the love, and the lessons. We challenge ourselves to learn to love what we do, not only for ourselves, but through ourselves for others. We have forgiveness, giving us peace and certainty in what we do, understanding that we have to forgive ourselves for the decision we make because we've learned from it, and we have to forgive ourselves so we can forgive others. And then, more importantly, in the decision making process, we have to live with accountability of our decisions. So many people live in liability when they make a decision. They blame, shame, justification of the decision that they've made, regardless of the market maker, or the buy and sell side of the values of the timing or risk tolerance. They now blame everyone else for what has happened. They take shame in the decision they've made and they justify it. But instead, what I want you to think about is being accountable. Detach your emotions. Understand that you yourself brought this decision on. You made decision. And there's only one thing on every decision we make. It's, what are we going to learn from it? Because if we learn from it, we now win the game. If we learn from it, we live in a world of expansion and growth and acceleration. We live in a world of more than enough of everything for everyone. Life is about these lessons. The decisions we make are about the lessons that we learn, not the results or the outcomes that occur. Therefore, detach your emotions from those decisions, and you will make those decisions more accurately and rapidly, which is so important in order to effectuate the acceleration, growth, compound interest that we want with those decisions, especially in financial investments. The next thing that we want to look at, number 3, are the reasons that we're making the decision. When we consider the reasons that we're making that decisions, we want to actually try to quantify those reasons. And the best way to quantify the reasons that we're making decisions is to see if we can articulate the quantifiable value of those reasons in order to exceed what they are asking for, or what the opposite or the reverse of the decision is. If we can explore with that more interested than interesting attitude the reasons that we're making that decision, and be able to articulate the quantifiable value of that decision that is greater than what we are giving, what an extraordinary way to effectuate the margins of millionaires, to effectuate the acceleration, the growth, the abundance that we want to be in that mindset. Beyond the reasons and being able to quantify those reasons, we need to ask ourselves what we do today, what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and then figure out if what we're deciding will improve the matter in order to effectuate a greater gain. And we do that same process for all 3 of the final things that we look at. We do it for reasons, but we also do it for impact. We need to articulate the quantifiable value of the impact that our decision is going to have. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing today? What don't we like about it? What do we like about it? And if this decision is going to improve that impact, and that delta will be the quantitative value of the impact that we have with the decision that we make. And when we look at those impacts, we can look at both the dependent and independent variables. We can see the impact on the market. We can see the impact on the market maker. We can see the impact on the buy side, the sell side, but they all have to still align with our values, our personal, experiential, our giving and receiving values. And none of it works or aligns unless we have a foundation of what our expectations are, knowing our what of timing and the risk tolerance, knowing our who, and of course, lastly, knowing our why with credibility, emotional attachment, reasons, impacts, and then finally, our capabilities. We have to understand the capabilities that we have, we want, or we need. When we take inventory of what capabilities we have, want, or need, we now can quantify and articulate the quantifiable value of the capabilities that we have, want, or need, and see how it's aligned with the decision that we're making with the what and the who. This how of credibility, emotional attachment, reasons, impacts, and capabilities, asking ourselves, how capabilities do we have today? What capabilities do we want today? What capabilities do we need today? What do we like about the capabilities that we have? What don't we like? And part of the reason we ask those questions is because we can take capabilities that are wanted or needed and move them to a different place or a different position. We can change the way we look at things so the things we look at change. And pretty soon, a weakness becomes a strength, and the capability inverts itself into a new capability, a quantifiable value. Being able to articulate that quantifiable value and be able to apply it to the decision making process is essential in making rapid and accurate decisions according to our own timing and risk tolerance and our own values. In other words, knowing our what, finding our who, knowing our who of the market makers, the buy and sell sides of a deal, but most importantly, knowing our how, the credibility, emotional attachment, reasons, impacts, and capability, and our capability of being able to articulate the quantifiable value of those. The fourth thing that we want to do is to be present in our decision making process. And for me, there's a quick assessment. Eisenhower have come up with the importance versus urgency matrix, where we determine things that are important versus what's urgent. And in making those decisions, we have to maximize an opportunity by a statistic. Now, I'm not a huge fan of statistics. There's only a few statistics that I think to be true. Number one, 100% of all short putts in golf, they don't go in. Another one is 99% of all statistics are made up. I know that. But the one statistic that holds true in decision making, especially concerning investments, is what I call do it now. You have to know your now. You know your what, your who, your how. Now you got to know your now. You have to ask yourself, can I make this decision now? And if I can, make it. And if I can't, go ahead and put it back into a repository, a calendar, a list where I can make this decision later, determinative upon the what, the who, and the how, but also importance of the decision versus urgency. So many times we make important decisions thinking they're urgent, and we don't know our what, our who, and our how, and we wonder why our now is all messed up. So we need to know our now, and we need to ask ourselves, can we make this decision now? And if we can, make it. You will save at least twice as much time by making the decision right away, as long as you are assessing the what, the who, and the how according to your timing, risk tolerance, values, market makers, sell and buy side, according to your credibility, emotional attachment, reasons, impacts, and capability. Know your now. Why? Because 100% of the things you do now get done. And people who get things done make better decisions. They have more productivity, accessibility, and gratitude in their life. They're capable of more efficiencies, effectiveness, and statistical success in those decisions. Then finally, if you know your what, your who, your how, and your now, the last is know your why you're making the decision. And what we need to do in order to understand our why is to practice understanding fear. Now, there's two types of fear in decision-making process. One is innate. It's a primal fear. It's what Freudian talks about, the need for feed, flight, fight, or the other F word that means procreate. Then there's the secondary fears, which have cost me millions and millions of dollars, time, resources, money, and so many relationships, I'm embarrassed to tell you. And those secondary fears consist of, one, the need to be right. The need to be right almost cost me my marriage, and over something silly. I was not in a good mindset and got into an argument with my wife about missing an exit and taking directions. And I had such a fervor and need to be right that we escalated and accelerated in the wrong trajectory until I was questioning whether or not I wanted to be married to my wife because I allowed that argument to get that far out of control. But I had a need to be right, a need to be offended. Trust me, if you have a need to be offended, if you get offended by somebody else's experience, we have serious problems. If we could feed the world as easy as the need to be offended, oh my gosh, we all would be full. Just the need to be right and offended and separate and inferior and superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, all of the needs that create interference to making a good decision, create obstacles, voids, and shortages in the decision-making process. We need to understand what we are afraid of and identify the needs of being angry, frustrated, angry, frustrated, guilty, resentful, offended, all of these different needs, worried. Worry's just wishing for what you don't want. How many decisions have we made in the wrong mindset that have cost us time, emotion, energy, money, and relationships? Learn to identify what you're afraid of, and then instead of resisting it, accelerating in the wrong direction, like many of us do, simply stop and then drop down to center, find your higher self, your higher power of thinking, and then roll in the right trajectory. Remember, when you're in this consciousness of getting in your own way of making a good decision, your mind, your body, and soul are on fire. When you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. Now, if you know your what, your timing and risk tolerance, with your values aligned with that, and you know your who the market's made, who the market is, the market makers, who the buy and sell side of a deal are. If you know your how, with credibility, emotional attachment, quantifying and articulating the quantifiable value of the reasons, the impacts, and the capabilities that you want, have, and need. And then finally, making a decision devoid of that emotional ego, the needs to be right, offended, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, guilty, resentful, all of these different needs that get in our way. If you know your what, your who, your how, your now, and your why, you will make game time decisions effectively for your personal, professional, and investments. Thank you so much. It's been David Meltzer.
Wow, David, it's great to have you here at the European Summit. Welcome, first of all.
Thank you for having me. I wish I was there in person. I just have to tell you, this is a bittersweet moment to be here.
Yeah, one of those business tips that I've got for you, underneath here, I've just got my shorts on, but I'm not going to stand up. The weather is fantastic in Marbella, as you'd expect. Beautiful Spain. But it's great to have you here. Now, one of the things that I thought would be fun, first of all, is to talk to you a little bit about your journey, because you had so many tips there and so much wealth of experience. So I went on to Amazon and I read your book reviews, as you do. And this one says, the book written by one of the premier sports agents in the country is exceptionally well written, insightful, with a good mix of stories and straight talk. Any leader, manager, or coach will find the book a good read. And there's a whole host of reviews like that. So just tell us a little bit about your journey, because they're saying there you're one of the premier sports agents in the country. Obviously, I'm in Europe. Just tell us a little bit about where you've come from and how you had all these fascinating insights.
Yeah, I was blessed to graduate law school and not be a lawyer. Despite my mom telling me that the internet was a fad, I went in 1992 to sell legal research online with my legal degree, and ended up 9 months out of law school being a millionaire, leveraging that into my first exit of $3.4 billion in 1995 with the West Publishing Thomson Reuters merger. Then going ahead and dropping the moniker of a lawyer and going to the Silicon Valley in the 90s, raising money in the middleware space, which was transcoding the internet onto WAP phones, XML, and then getting the job in 1999 as the CEO of the world's first smartphone. We didn't call them in 1999 smartphones back then. They were called convergence devices. You converged a laptop and a phone into one, but it was a Windows device. It was a Windows CE device with a Bluetooth stylus called the PC-E phone, cleverly enough. But I was at 30, a multimillionaire with and being the CEO in that space. I met a guy named Lee Steinberg, who's the most notable sports agent in the world. They made the movie Jerry Maguire about his firm, and I within 48 hours of meeting him, was offered the CEO job. And I ran the most notable sports agency in the world, where I met Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon, the American quarterback, the first African-American quarterback in both United States Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Canadian. They actually made him play in Canada because way back in the 70s, they didn't want black quarterbacks. They said they weren't smart enough to play in America. And so he had to prove himself. And we built a global sports marketing agency, Warren and I. And in the last 4 years, ever since I met this amazing guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, I started to build my own brand. I've written books for years, but more importantly, I started speaking. I have one of the top podcasts in the world. I have TV shows all over the world, Elevator Pitch, 2-Minute Drill, Office Hours on Bloomberg, Amazon, the greatest, world's greatest motivators. And I really have focused in on individual brands in the context of companies, become an expert, not only by proving that I could do it for myself, but I could do it for other executives in their companies, utilizing the blend of traditional marketing and digital marketing. But I do it all with one mission in mind: to empower over 1 billion people to be happy, to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun.
Amazing. Well, I want to dig into that kind of, there's almost a spiritual side to this, kind of a being centered, and then you're able to perform really well. Tell us a little bit about people who perhaps have been challenged and then become really successful using this approach, because it's one thing, you know, to say, look, you need to take a step back. I was listening to you there, and you were saying, take a step back, find that central point. You've got to be happy. And I loved the point that you made that, you know, happy people don't generally go around terrorizing other people or starting wars or anything like that, generally, I think. But tell us a little bit about the before and after, because you must have met some people that have been pretty challenged and then managed to turn that around.
Well, I think in my own personal journey, right? Growing up with nothing, having a single mom, 6 kids, just wanting to be rich, not having the right perspective about money, which is a currency. It's an object of energy that you put into the flow to get what you want. See, money doesn't buy love or happiness, but it allows you to shop. And the lesson where faith and spirituality comes in is, if you shop for the right things, you'll be happy. If you shop for things you don't need to impress people you don't like, you're going to be unhappy. But you have to blend the currency of money with the currency of faith. See, faith itself, the spiritual centeredness that we talk about, but faith in the hope that we're going to end up in a better place, a better position, or make our situation better than we are by experiencing pain and setbacks and failures, these changes that you're discussing. That had happened to me. I went down the road of thinking I was a philanthropist by giving to receive, thinking that I was happy because I was so rich and had access to everyone and everything in the world. But meanwhile, I was lonely, separate, and depressed and unhappy. And until I shifted the paradigm from that world of not enough, where I was a victim, no matter how much I had, things happened to me, living in liability, not accountability, but also living in a world for me, buying things I don't need to impress people I don't like. I shifted a paradigm and said, I will receive with the greatest intent to appreciate and give it away, meaning add value to it and give it away. And when I did that, I started to shift into a world of more than enough of everything for everyone, an abundant world of faith and money, where I make a lot of money to help a lot of people and have a lot of fun, and use pain, setbacks, failures that you were discussing as an indicator, not a stop sign, as an indicator that you have a better place, a better position, or a better situation to be in. And one of the people that mirrored this and learned from me is a famous quarterback that was one of our clients, Ryan Leaf, who is noted probably as the biggest bust ever, $11 million guaranteed contract, second pick behind Peyton Manning in America, who ended up just destroying not only his career, but his life with addiction and arrests and all types of things, because he had not understood that blend. And now he actually is giving back. He is changing lives. He has shows, and he has a huge recovery center, and he's funding and has a huge charity to help other people. You see, the one thing I will tell you, if you are lost right now, anxious, depressed, utilizing the triggers of the ego, thoughts will not change that. it's a good starting point. It just like motivation is a great starting point. It gets you up, gets you back up, gets you started, gets you restarted. But if you're going to be inspired, you're going to have to be able to understand and give back. And actions are what are taking the role to change the way that you think, feel, do, and say. And so I always say, go do a good deed if you want to change the way you feel. If you're depressed, anxious, frustrated, angry, amazing if you go out and smile at people, pick up trash, hug people, do a good deed, volunteer. That's the only thing that will make you change the way you feel. Logic cannot change emotion. You can keep telling yourself, don't worry, let it go. It'll never let go. You'll remain worried. Go do something. And the best thing you can do is act in your truth to provide service or value to someone else.
You mentioned a couple of people. I'm going to ask you about your wife first of all. So I thought that was very interesting that you were saying you wanted to be offended. You know, you were almost looking for an argument. You were looking for things to be offended by. What difference has your wife noticed? What has she said about the changes that you made and then how you are now compared to back then?
Yeah, I think she sees a blend of persistence with patience instead of persistence with anger. Um, and that's the most notable thing, is that I'm always born, it's quantum in my nature to be and have the desire that I must be what I can be. But with that came a lot of separation and anger, and aggressive, competitive comparison and judgments and conditions. And I think one of my super enlightenments of my journey has been to blend persistence with patience. See, to understand that one, the law of gravity is something I never instituted in my life, that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be at the right place at the perfect time. Then two, I've always instituted the law of Goya, Goya, to get off my ass and make it happen. The desire that I must be what I can be, to angle to what I want no matter what. That then leads to the law of attraction, a law of allowance that says I'm angling toward what I want, but I have faith that I'm going to end up somewhere better. See, faith became my GPS. What is great about a GPS is if you miss an exit, have a flat tire, or end up at the donut shop instead of somewhere else, it's going to reroute you. To put you right back to the track of the destination that you want to be on. See, faith is even better than that, because when you get off track, you have a flat tire, end up at the donut shop when you're not supposed to be. It actually not only will reroute you, but it will reroute you to a better destination. And that's where this blend of patience and persistency, I have plenty of goals, plenty of objectives, but I just have faith that I'm going to end up somewhere better than I can even think. I institute rule number 6. I don't take myself so seriously. I know I don't know what I don't know. That's why radical humility becomes my guide, not arrogance and ego.
Well, the second person you mentioned was Gary Vee, of course, who I think all of us know. And he's been spending a lot of time in London. There's a London team. I mean, I'm from the UK, you probably tell from my accent. But what did you learn from Gary Vee? So you said it's been about 4 years. You've got a world-leading podcast, obviously a book. Is that all down to Gary? What other tricks have you learned?
Well, the books I've written before Gary, and but what Gary taught me, see, he actually, his brother, they were starting a sports agency. And I offered my help to build that sports agency to help them. And I didn't know who Gary Vee was. I knew AJ, his brother, was starting a sports agency, but we met in the Nike suite and everyone got so excited because Gary Vee was there. Now, I don't know who that is. I sat down with Gary and he asked me what he could do for me, which is typical Gary. And I said, I'm really interested in how you've built such a tremendous brand in a digital respect. I'm an expert in the traditional ways of print, radio, TV, and media appearances and speaking and books and all the traditional things that I've done for the greatest celebrities, athletes, and entertainers in the world. But how you, middle-aged, little entrepreneur, you're more popular and have a bigger following than all of my superstars, from Warren Moon to Troy Aikman to Steve Young to Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis and everybody. How'd you do it? And he said, I can teach you. And so what he taught me was how to capture what I do, how to modify what I do, how to amplify what I do, and perpetuate it in a digital way and build a community around it. Not followers. See, the difference between Gary and hopefully myself compared to a lot of people that are standing in front of cars they don't own, in houses they don't own, creating a perfect facade of something they don't have. Gary and I work from a position of vulnerability, of honesty, of illumination of our weaknesses and our strengths. And to be able to build a community instead of a following, an engaged community that will stand up for what they believe in and what you believe in, will listen and be intelligent followers, which is the definition of leaders. And so Gary taught me how to capture, modify, amplify, and perpetuate myself, my content. And he also had me get over the biggest deterrent of people building their brands and products, services, and solutions, and it's you can't post too much. Yeah, I spent probably the first 2 years working with him, and every time he looked at my Instagram, he'd like, you need to post more. I'm like, what about captions and colors and logo? No, just post more. And my philosophy now is, if you are not annoying the people who love you and like you, if they're not annoying them to the point where like, dude, you post a lot, you haven't even reached the bottom level of where you should be posting, because there's 6.4 billion people out there and you are giving them far too much credit if you think posting once a week is going to get their attention, intention, and create a community.
I think we'll end up back with your wife there if you're out for dinner posting Instagram pics. The crowd that are watching you here, it's all about digital marketing, affiliate marketing in particular. You talked about I think probably one of the great leaders in that space. I mean, he kind of, at least for us in Europe, came from nowhere, because I believe Gary Vee's first thing was wine, wasn't it? But I mean, that completely passed me by. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get that at all. But everything since, yeah, we're very much aware of what he's doing. So what have you learned in terms of tips that would apply, and I guess tools and techniques for the digital marketing folks? You've talked about posting a lot. What other things do you do?
Utilizing your community, asking for help, to understand how that amplification process isn't just each platform on buying ads against it. It's understanding the relationships that you have with those affiliates, with the channel partnership, and understanding business development, being able to provide value where people want to help you. So, I'm known for, being available and accessible. See, I see digital marketing in 3 lenses. The first is productivity. And, Gary and I have both worked together to figure out this philosophy, but the productivity side is, are you providing service or value with the content that you have? Are you pursuing your truth, your potential, your frequency? See, a lot of people try to please everyone instead of finding their own frequency. You have to excavate yourself to elevate your brand. You need to know who you are, what that frequency is, strengthen it, build the spectrum of people that are tuned into your frequency, and then practice by posting a lot and creating a lot of content to clarify the message. My favorite example of this is Dr. Pimple Popper, not only because I hate and I would never want to watch pimples being popped, but she's an expert at strengthening her signal, knowing her spectrum. In fact, she has more subscribers than the entire Pro Football Hall of Fame, which I market. If you aggregate the greatest heroes in America at their #1 sport, she has more subscribers, engaged subscribers than all of them, because she knows her frequency. And so, understanding how that lens of productivity is utilized through the strengthening of the signal, the spectrum, and the clarity. The second lens is accessibility. And it's a bifocal lens. It's a lens of being accessible to as many people as you can through posting, channel partnerships, business development, taking on as many interviews as you can to build as much content, capturing as much as you can, but also, how are you accessing what you want? Creating a plan of asking people for what you want. For me, I like to have everyone attend my free trainings. I like to give my 5 daily practices. I give my book, ebook, audiobook. I sign books and send them and pay for shipping for free. I post my email right there, david@dmeltzer.com, so everybody can reach out. That's my ask. Not only do I want to be accessible, but I want to access you and help you to empower others, to empower others. And then finally, the most important lens that Gary and I are known for is the lens of gratitude. But gratitude isn't just saying thank you before you go to bed and when you wake up. Yes, that will change your life. Say thank you before you go to bed and when you wake up. But gratitude is a superpower of perception. It is the power of finding the light, the love, and the lessons in everything. See, being able to find the lessons in it. And this is so important of digital marketing, because people that aren't searching the light, the love, and the lessons are speaking to people. They're advertising to people. See, I sell, advertise, and inspire through people. I'm trying to figure out what are they listening for, not what will they listen to. See, if I can figure out what other people are listening for, I can market to them, not only in the digital sense, but leverage and amplify the traditional side. So I'll give you an example of what people miss. I was in the American Way magazine. It was a dream of mine to be featured in American Way magazine. And they gave me my choice last year of any month. So of course I chose the December, January issue, because that's when the most people travel. I did not anticipate when I chose the month that COVID would happen in the pandemic. So what I did is I started to create content by illuminating my humility of what an idiot I was. And I would show the American Way magazine to, now, instead of the people in the plane, however, hundreds of thousands or millions of people that might or may not have read the article, featuring me, pleading to my ego, instead I captured it, amplified it, and perpetuated it through content like this. So now, through humility of making that mistake, I now informed everyone that there's a feature article in American Way magazine, even though you've never seen it and weren't on the airplane. And these are the type of things that we can use in digital marketing. It's okay to pay for a billboard, just capture it, use it in your content. So not only are the cars going by going to see it, but the millions of other people are going to see it through the aspect of social media and digital marketing.
Amazing. I want to see this in-flight magazine now.
It's right behind me. I'll have Jake hand it to me. We'll throw it up real fast. Go ahead.
Well, David, that's all we've got time for today. So let's look at it. Let's look at it. He's grabbing
it. There you go. Jake grabbed it. So this was
let's pull that full screen if we can there.
Yeah, pretty cool, right? And here, go ahead, find it, Jakey. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone. We didn't get the availability of the magazine. Jake's looking for the article real quick. Has a nice little sketch picture of me in there. And any other things real quick, Ralph, as we finish up? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, how do people get hold of you? But you're one step ahead. It's right there. You are David at dmeltzer.com.
Yeah, and I'd love to send anyone my book, ebook, audiobook, my book, or the 5 daily practices that I talk about, knowing your what, your who, your how, your now, and how to apply your why. And when you apply your why, that's it. Here's, if you didn't catch it when you were flying, there we go. The great simple ways to make the most of 2021. Right there, got my nice picture. So I may not have been to everyone flying, but there you see it. Meltzer.com.
Amazing. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening or morning. I guess it's still morning for you, isn't it? Yes. And we look forward. Maybe we'll see you in Marbella or wherever the European Summit is going to be next time. But it's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We'll see you soon.
day one, Crack Revenue's tagline has been, "Follow the whale." 10 years later, it's truer than ever. Unlike most CPA networks, we test all of our top offers using our designers, media buyers, and analysts to make sure the funnel is working and that the offer is more than profitable. Then we share the recipe with our affiliates. Simply put, Crack Revenue is made for affiliates by affiliates. It's the whole idea behind Follow the Whale. That way, everybody wins.